il devint le père de la psychiatrie américaine, son effigie figurant sur le sceau de l'Association psychiatrique américaine. À la fin des années 1800, comme les psychiatres ne pouvaient pas soigner la folie et comme ils sentaient leurs revenus menacés, ils ont inventé de nouveaux modèles médicaux.
The cures promised when was delivered. So by the 1860s and 70s, a growing mood of pessimism was covering Europe and North America, that effectively the new institutions were ever growing in size but not growing in their effectiveness.
Le XXe siècle a apporté davantage de modèles médicaux. Le psychiatre américain Henry Cotton mutilait ses patients, leur ôtant des parties du corps en déclarant qu'il s'agissait d'une percée dans le traitement des maladies mentales.
The earliest target was the teeth and then the tonsils and the sinuses. But when patients didn't get better, the enthusiasts for this treatment then started to move down the body and to say, well, obviously patients have swallowed bacteria in their saliva, so stomachs need to go, spleens need to go, colons need to go.
Cependant, comme l'indignation du public allait grandissant en raison de ces tortures et de ces mutilations, les psychiatres se sont mis à inventer de nouvelles méthodes. Chacune annoncée comme un traitement miracle, mais ne s'avérant ni plus efficace, ni moins brutale que la dernière.
This is a history of psychiatry, more or less, to damage the patient. I mean, this is a version of the original model, which was to chain them like animals.
If you're doing it to somebody because you insist that they have to change, and you're going to do that by turning the screws, you might say, whether it's with medication, restraint, whatever, that's torture. And a huge part of what psychiatry has done really comes down to torture.
Tout au long du XXe siècle, la psychiatrie a cherché à prouver sa légitimité en prenant l'aspect d'une spécialité médicale. Mais ils ont uniquement réussi à développer des méthodes plus efficaces pour infliger des tortures physiques et mentales, parfois jusqu'à la mort. Un héritage qui se poursuit de nos jours sous la forme très lucrative de prescriptions à grande échelle de psychotropes à des millions de gens. Mais pour ce faire, les psychiatres devaient démolir l'une des croyances les plus chères de l'homme, en déclarant que les gens n'étaient pas ce qu'ils pensaient être. Université de Leipzig, Allemagne, 1879. Le professeur Wilhelm Wundt expérimente les perceptions humaines. Wundt affirme que les pensées, la personnalité et le comportement de l'homme ne sont que des réactions chimiques dans le cerveau.
Wundt became frustrated with his inability to change behavior because he was dealing with the original, psychology. That's the psyche, that's the soul. He created a new science, which was based on man being an animal without a soul, to be trained. Not to be a thinker, but to be trained.
Des étudiants venus du monde entier étudièrent Wundt et sa nouvelle définition de l'homme, soit un organisme sans âme. L'état d'esprit qui régnait à cette époque fut résumé par le philosophe allemand Friedrich Nietzsche.
Gott ist tot. Gott bleibt tot. Wir haben ihn umgebracht.
Le russe Ivan Pavlov, s'appuyant sur les théories de Wundt, expérimenta sur les animaux pour découvrir comment modifier le comportement.
Pavlov studied in Wilhelm Wundt's laboratory in Leipzig, Germany, in the late 1800s. And he experimented with dogs, with electrodes and stimulus response, denying privileges to denying rewards.
And he noticed that when you brought out some food in front of animals, dogs in particular, that they would begin to salivate. So he'd ring the bell at the same time that he brought the food out, and then eventually, instead of bringing the food out, he just rang the bell, and of course the dogs got all excited. He called that a conditioned reflex.
Les premiers cobayes humains de Pavlov étaient des enfants. Il leur perçait des trous dans les joues pour recueillir et mesurer leur salive.
Pavlovian conditioning became one of the major foundations of a lot of behavioral science research in the 20th century.
L'idée selon laquelle le comportement pouvait être contrôlé par un conditionnement répétitif prit le nom de behaviorisme.
The behaviorists believed that all children are animals and can be trained as animals. This was the view of behaviorists. As a matter of fact, John Watson, the most famous of the behaviorists, says that you have to treat human beings or look at human beings the way you would look at the ox you slaughter. See, the behavior is not interested in what's up in your head or your soul because they don't believe there is a soul.
Le successeur de Watson, le psychologue B.F. Skinner de Harvard, pensait que le comportement pouvait être manipulé pour atteindre le but recherché par le psychologue behavioriste.
Skinner developed what's called operant conditioning, where he was able to demonstrate you can change animal behavior by certain schedules of reinforcement, by giving them rewards at certain times, and then you can teach pigeons to play ping pong, for example, and you can teach rats to run mazes, and you can teach human beings to seek certain economic or societal rewards.
Skinner could actually shape new behavior patterns, and this actually was the sort of thing he quite soon became very famous for.
Son expérience la plus notoire a sans doute été la boîte de Skinner.
He was designing a Skinner box, which is something like a big playpen, but everything in it's controlled. The temperature's controlled, the light's controlled, and so on. And the idea is then you present children with certain stimuli that you want them to learn to react to.
Pendant près d'un an, Skinner isola sa fille dans une boîte semblable à celle construite pour des rats.
The child was stimulated and had to respond in a certain way, like a chicken or a rat in a cage, because they firmly believe that children are animals. If you believe, though, that a child is a human being, you can't train him like a rat.
Aujourd'hui, 40 millions de dollars provenant de la poche du contribuable sont versés chaque année par l'Institut de santé mentale pour la recherche du comportement en psychologie. Un total de 19 milliards depuis 1948. Avec ces fonds, les psychiatres utilisent les mêmes méthodes de conditionnement que Pavlov, Watson et Skinner. Exemple, une maison de correction où des enfants sont connectés à des batteries de 270 volts et soumis à des secousses électriques selon une procédure appelée thérapie par aversion.
Antoine was having a number of problems because he was up at a center that was shocking him every time he did anything. There was a button on a little, almost like a TV remote, that would be used and pushed.
They will get an additional shock for trying to remove the electrode. So they're expected to sit there and let this electricity pass through their skin without trying to remove it. If they yell in anticipation of the shock, they will shock the student an additional time for yell.
The cost to send a student to Judge Rottenberg from New York is about $214,000 per student. These students are tortured. They're given this electric shock therapy for no other reason but to inflict pain.
D'autres techniques comprennent le traitement par électrochoc pour perversion sexuelle, l'administration d'impulsions magnétiques dans le crâne pour interrompre l'activité du cerveau, ou encore l'implantation chirurgicale d'électrodes pour réprimer les troubles du comportement. Procédé coûtant jusqu'à 100 000 $ par patient. Alors que cette science sans âme, pourvoyeuse de techniques de modification du comportement, continue de générer des milliards pour la recherche et le traitement, elle a fourni les bases d'un mouvement psychiatrique responsable de millions de morts.
January 1945. As World War II comes to a close, the full horror of Hitler's final solution is exposed, with grotesque killing factories unparalleled in human history. Mass graves filled with corpses of men, women and children, murdered by starvation, bullets and poison gas. What could drive men to commit such atrocities against their fellow human beings?
La réponse se trouve dans une pseudo-science appelée eugénisme, développée et encouragée par la psychiatrie quelques dizaines d'années avant les nazis.
The eugenics movement got started in 1883 with Francis Galton, and he felt that human beings should take evolution in their own hands, and that the most talented individuals, the most healthy individuals, the most attractive individuals should have more offspring.
There was great concern that people that they considered had poor genes were reproducing faster than the people they considered had good genes.
They felt that a medical solution might be the proper one. This is what led to the sterilization movement.
It resulted in sterilization of mentally ill people, sterilization of retarded people, sterilization of people we don't like politically and sociologically. So the problem is not with genetics. The problem is